Episode 30, Part 6, the World Peace Jubilee, the final performances. And from a performance perspective, we will concentrate on the final 13 concerts, planned initially to complete the original World Peace Jubilee. This would deliver far more choral and orchestral works than the opening week and hopefully educate the American public in the finer points of choral arrangements. In addition, this section would also welcome the President and his cabinet to the Colosseum, as well as the African American performances, which in themselves would lay down a legacy that would continue to this day. So you're all very welcome back to this episode 30 of the Gilmore story. Again, as this whole Jubilee has never been told in depth, or indeed with any accuracy, this section has been completely ignored for its beauty and innovation, but also for its waste and extravagance. I hope you enjoy it, and please click like and subscribe down below. And a special request, if you have any family history in this Peace Jubilee, or indeed the previous 1869 National Peace Jubilee, please contact me at gilmoresband@gmail.com or comment below. I'll be back to you. Maybe you know of someone who has a link with either concerts or even an item from the Jubilee. I'd love to hear from you anyway and your story. So the first week had been an overall success. Crowds were up, not always 50,000 per day, but some days an excess sat outside, and other days there seemed to be a large number of seats available within the auditorium, and still crowds of 30,000 created an atmosphere even in such a large auditorium. In those initial performances and their concert structure, Gilmore had introduced America to the good, the bad, and the not so good in music. And at the top of the list was obviously the French band of Napoleon, the Kaiser's bands, the English bands of the Grenadiers, and of course the Grand Seductor himself from Vienna, Johann Strauss. Then came the military bands of the orchestra in second place. And these were followed by the US Marine Band, who would shortly be joined by the Irish Band as the two worst bands of the festival. But Gilmore had raised the base standard of music in America in these few days. Now people expected more, and having heard a higher standard of proficiency, performance, and professionalism in those first few days, they could no longer accept the previous standards. Those thousands would now spread the story of the European brilliance back home to their neighbours, their towns, and their cities. They would demand more than this basic brass and drum performance. So now we had a reason. We had the reason why the World Peace Jubilee had that second name of International Music Festival as well. These bands and orchestras were all indeed performing at the highest level in competition with each other. And the ultimate judge would be the audience in the auditorium. Even Dwight Sullivan, the editor of the famous journal, failed to register this aim in his thoughts or articles at that time. But for Gilmore, the comfort of knowing that he, as leader of the preeminent band at this time in America, did not give him personal satisfaction when he knew that across the Atlantic there were bands that performed in a different galaxy to standards not yet attained in America. And this truly annoyed him. He had a personal debt to America for giving him refugee as an Irish famine refugee, and he was obligated to pay that debt back. And so the emphasis on June the 23rd, a Sunday, in the World Peace Jubilee was defined to be a solemn day of worship with a choral piece entitled Angel of Peace, followed by He Watching Over Israel, and Rossini's Stabat Mater in Part 1, and Mozart's Gloria from the 12th Mass and ending on Near My God to Thee, being some of the tastes of the pieces played that particular day. The next day, June the 24th, was Oratorio Day, featuring the Handel and Haydn Society for Part 1, whilst the second part featured the Salem, Lynn and West Roxbury's societies performing the Handel Grand Oratorio, Israel in Egypt. For this unique performance, the conductor was Carl Zerhan, and he had been so formidable and influential in the 1869 World Peace Jubilee, the National Peace Jubilee, I should say. However, on June the 25th, the World Peace Jubilee welcomed President Ulysses S. Grant and his complete cabinet to the event with the U.S. Marine Band, accompanied by the orchestra and chorus playing Hail to the Chief in his honour, followed by See the Conquering Hero Comes. And this was their second performance in the complete World Peace Jubilee. Dan Godfrey directed homage to Columbia with his Royal Grenadiers, and Part 1 finished with Kunstler Leben, or Artist Life, conducted by Strauss and his orchestra. Part 2 of that day featured the Kaiser's Band of Germany plus the Band of La Garde Républicaine, but the shock of the day was the second appearance of the black singers known as the Jubilee Singers of Tennessee, and indeed a black soprano to sing the national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. An estimated 70,000 people within the Colosseum and a further 20,000 outside the building listened to the concert through the timber walls. A wonderful success for all, but surprisingly few newspapers in the east or north of the country, in extensive reports of the event, even reported that any black singer appeared in the Colosseum that historic day. And none in the south could be found to mention the special moment that the Jubilee singers had that day before a primarily white audience. But President Grant must have been impressed, as he invited the Jubilee singers back to the White House in Washington for a performance there. The performance of the Jubilee singers will be covered in more detail in a later episode. June the 26th and indeed the 27th of June both featured again the stars of the Jubilee, including the European bands and, of course, Johann Strauss with his orchestra. And visitors to the site not only were able to walk around the enormous building, which measured 500 feet by 300 feet, or almost 3.5 acres, a massive building. Today, never mind in those times. There were stalls selling flowers. Lilies were 1 cent for 2 flowers. Or you could buy cards, circulars, programs, directories, maps, fans, memorabilia from the World Peace Jubilee. All of these were so popular. One could climb onto the roof of the Colosseum by ladder and climb to the 120th foot high building. For really adventurous people, though, you could take a balloon ride for $2, which was tethered to the ground by rope. A new innovation for that period was that you could also buy a suit of clothes off the rack, already made men's clothing, which wasn't usual in those days. The 28th of June was unusual, as this would be the only one of those 2 days when the Blue Danube would be played. But this day, it would be played unusually by the Band de la République de France, led by Monsieur Paulus. Indeed, a tribute to Johann Strauss by the French organization. This was one of the warmest days of the Jubilee, which reflected in the poor attendance in the Colosseum. But on June the 29th, or the 30th day of the World Peace Jubilee, a Saturday, it would also be known as Gilmore's Day, and the audience would all have reason for returning to the auditorium in their droves. In part one of the concert, it would feature the band of the Kaiser, led by Herr Saro. Then the Anvil Chorus, led by Gilmore himself. Then, followed by the inaugural piece composed for and performed by and dedicated to Gilmore by Johann Strauss himself. This was performed for the occasion with the chorus, organ, orchestra, anvil bells, and canon accompaniment. If there was any doubt in Gilmore's mind about the general feeling that Boston and New England generally had for the musical leader, then such thoughts could be erased after this performance. Each and every time Gilmore had appeared on the podium, people cheered. Hats were thrown, handkerchiefs waved, and all called the name of the Irishman with absolute love and appreciation. This day the building was packed to capacity, and Gilmore rose in complete uniform to conduct his own band. And this was the signal for a burst of applause that had never been heard before on the continent. All new numbers on the program were received enthusiastically. A perfect day, but for the intense heat of the day, which caused more than 100 ladies to faint at the concert. The Jubilee Waltz, composed by Johann Strauss and dedicated to Gilmore, was given special mention in reviews as a fresh and brilliant composition, including the Star Spangled Banner, which is effectively introduced as part of the composition. As the concert ended, Mr. Gilmore was invited to the press headquarters by the 40 members of the Southern Press Association, who then made a presentation to him for his untiring efforts on this project. In return, the members of the Gilmore's band then played for the association a most lovely version of Dixie for their delight. The next concert was Monday, July the 1st, for Irish Day, where the excellent French band were joined by the Strauss and his orchestra, with the Kaiser's band and, of course, Dan Godfrey leading the Grenadiers, all to be accompanied by the Irish band, just arrived in Boston, led by its leader, Edmund Clements. It must be said that the Irish band musically were dreadful by the general standard of the time, but they achieved Gilmore's aim of having his birth home represented by a distinctly Irish band, a treat for both the huge Irish population in New England at this time and for their continued pride in their homeland in spite of the recent famines that they had all so recently fled. And finally, for this episode, July the 2nd was Italian Day, and it would open with the William Tell Overture by Rossini, followed by the Grenadier Guards and a selection, a chorus from Elijah, Thanks Be to God, and another overture, Jubilee, directed by Herr Saro with the Kaiser France Grenadier Band. Part 1 closed with Wine, Women and Song with Strauss. The temperature dropped to a pleasant and comfortable level for all, and Italian Day was one of the better days as a result. Crowds were not as large, as most had decided that as previous days were hot and sticky, this one would follow suit. However, for those that gambled, a lovely breeze filtered through the Colosseum, which was luxurious. During the singing of Near My God to Thee, Mr. Tourget, the chorus superintendent, paid the audience a compliment by giving them his complete attention as conductor for the piece, and so at one stage the participation of both the chorus and the audience was indeed complete. The French band performance was as immaculate as another performance, in in this performance, there was general agreement amongst all that this band, above all others, would return home with the title of the greatest of all the visitors at the Jubilee. The 50th day was now closed. Now there was but a few concerts left, and America was now educated in the finer points of musical appreciation without necessarily knowing any of the defining points of performance. Now at least they were aware of dynamics and how a piece of music could develop and improve through the correct use of both pianissimo, soft, and fortissimo, loud. So, click like and subscribe and share. And remember, if there are any memories in your family of this great event or the 1869 Jubilee, please let me know. Thank you all for listening, and I look forward to telling you more next week. Thank you, and bye-bye.